Last week, I told you about some of the academic challenges facing Native American students and President Obama's plans to improve the educational experience and the outcome for those students. I would like to continue my discussion about Native American youth with Erik Stegman of the Center for American Progress. Erik has written a very fine article on Native American school mascots and the impact they have on all students, but in particular, Native American students. Good to have you joining us today, and I'm so glad to talk to somebody about this issue because, as I said last week, I oftentimes don't think we hear enough about the lives of Native Americans, and this report is very eye-opening. What made you decide to study mascots and teams and Native Americans and Alaska Natives?
Well, I do a lot of work with Native youth groups across the country, and this is an issue that really matters for them. And in fact, one of the reasons that a lot of them told me they were so pleased to see this report come out is that it's really acknowledging a serious challenge that goes on in schools across the country.
Yeah, so imagine, and I saw a picture, imagine how you must feel, you know, you're at a football or, you know, you're in the pep rally, you know, and you're in the gym, and then here comes the mascot, and the mascot is dressed up in this stereotypical, you know what I'm saying, all kinds of just unacceptable stuff. I mean, how would that make anybody else feel? You know?
Right.
But the feelings of the Native Americans are not taken into consideration. It's like it's poo-pooed. Oh, come on, it's no big deal. It's to honor you. No.
Well, I think that's a lot of what you hear when these things go on, and one of the reasons we titled the report Missing the Point is because we really are missing the point. There are hundreds and hundreds of tribal cultures across the country, and boiling it down into some stereotype only to be paraded around in your own school is beyond offensive. It actually affects, and we show this in the report, how non-Native people understand or don't understand Native people, and that's one of the serious problems we have going on here.
You know, as an African American, if I think about it, if one of the mascots at my high school was the Rockin' Sockin' Sambos, okay, and you've got this stereotypical guy coming out being whatever the stereotype of a Sambo is, oh my goodness. You know, black people would be up in arms, you know, the administration would be called on the carpet, but that's not the case when it comes to Native American mascots.
Well, that's one of the reasons in the report we actually have a recommendation that the Office of Civil Rights at the Department of Education look into this, because this is a serious issue, as you just pointed out, for any group of people who's marginalized and then misrepresented. And one of the things that I spent time talking to students on the phone about in developing this report is that this oftentimes turns into bullying, and this turns into hostile learning environments, and we need to work against this. You know, we're far too along in the 21st century to be having these kinds of racist mascots. So
when you talk to students, American Indian and Alaska Native students, what are they saying? I mean, are they saying, how are they being discriminated against? Explain it to me a little more thoroughly.
Well, one of the students actually in our report shared a really disturbing story about, he's a 15-year-old football player, and he actually has to go play his arch rival school, which is the Calaveras Redskins, and they actually dress up cheerleaders in these sort of stereotypical Pocahontas costumes and pretend to actually, you know, beat them and all sorts of other things. And so this stuff goes on all over the country, and I think a lot of the public would be horrified to see what's actually happening.
Because this is horror on my face.
And it should be, and we're really hoping actually more people will take this seriously instead of just, you know, shoo-shooing this issue as something that doesn't have an actual impact on people.
I think, Erik, what really irks me is that it doesn't have to be an issue that involves African Americans for me to understand how someone can feel offended by something. But that's not the case with some people. They're like, I don't see what's offensive. What are you talking about? And when you're in the majority, okay, whites are the majority of the population, sometimes there's just a sensitivity chip that is missing. Maybe they don't even mean for it to be missing, but it is missing. You know, I think about the Confederate flag. I know that that means something totally different to some people in the South, but let me tell you what it means to me and my African Americanness and my Atlantic slave trade, you know, background. It means something totally different. Okay, because we know what the Civil War was about. You can pretend over there like it was something else, but it had to do with slavery. And that Confederate flag is a symbol that continues to be on post-secondary campuses, you know, K through 12, it doesn't matter. and it's offensive to me, and it should be offensive to you as well.
Right.
And that's the point of your article.
Right. I think that, one of the things is we have to look beyond what these symbols are just as, something on a piece of paper or on a uniform. They say so much more. I think the flag one is another interesting one because unfortunately the people who end up being offended by these are asked on a daily basis to defend why they're offended.
Exactly.
And I don't think we need to put especially youth in a position like that. We should be really trying to get rid of these kinds of representations. And honestly, if one person is offended, it's enough.
Absolutely.
And we shouldn't have to question it.
I mean, because we got a lot of mascot names we can come up with. The badgers, you
right.
name it.
Yeah,
we got a lot of animals.
Tigers.
Tigers and bears and lions, oh my. Explain to me, I want to make sure that I am using terms correctly and my audience, I want to just educate everyone. American Indian, is that the correct terminology or is Native American more correct?
So it's, as with anything, it's usually just important to kind of ask whoever you're talking to. American Indians and Alaska Natives, though, has a very specific legal definition, and it's how the federal government deals constitutionally with tribes, and so that's one of the reasons we use those. But Native American is perfectly fine too. It's just that that's got a little bit more of a legal connotation.
Because I'm fine with being called black, but some people want to be called African American.
Right.
So
Native American is a pretty safe bet.
Okay. All right. When you were doing your research, do you have a rough estimate as to how many schools we're looking at with these mascots?
No, actually, that's one of the things we're hoping to get to the bottom of. We know that there are thousands of them out there. The last, count was roughly 3,000. We know a lot have been retired since then. But I think with the Department of Education taking this seriously, one of the things we're hoping to do is to even just get a census of how many of these are actually out there, so we know what communities they're impacting, especially those with a lot of Native students. A lot of these schools are right up or on reservations, so it's really a challenge. And
of course, this conversation we're having bleeds straight into the Washington Redskins and the Dan Snyder controversy, where, one minute I'm hearing that people are offended, the next minute I'm hearing, no, Native Americans are fine with it. And I've been unable to sort of engage the Native American community to come on the show to talk about it, but then I saw something recently and they came out and a tribe or so came out and said this is unacceptable. But it needs to be louder, more vociferous.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we're trying to do with the report, is to also bring this issue up to a larger group that I think really deserves to both hear from real Native people instead of a bunch of people talking about what Native people think, and to figure out how we can build this into our broader struggle for civil rights, because this is just part of any number of different kinds of oppression around the country, and we shouldn't put up with any of it.
The ongoing struggle for civil rights for everybody, not just a few. Erik Stegman with the Center for American Progress, thank you so much. Your article is great. I would recommend you guys read it. Where can people find it?
You can find it at americanprogress.org.
Okay. Thank you so much,
Thank
sir.
you.
Good having you in the studio.
Appreciate it.
All right. We'll be right back.